Well, hello and welcome to today's episode. So, if you are someone who listens to the podcast regularly, then you'll know that this is the fourth and final in a series of 4 episodes that I'm doing highlighting the pillars of obesity medicine as useful strategies for helping us to improve these elements of our life. So, you'll see overlap, of course, with lifestyle medicine where there are 6 pillars, but in obesity medicine, we talk fundamentally about sleep, nutrition, activity, and stress. And today we are talking about stress, specifically stress management, what it is, what it isn't, and a different way to think about it than perhaps we have talked about before. So I hope that if you have not listened to those past episodes, I hope you'll go back. We are currently in September of 2024, so you'll see that all the episodes in September 2024 are tuned in on this topic, with the exception of the guests, although, of course, we always talk about stress with guests because that's just what we do here. So I really struggled to get this episode recorded, and let me give you some context. So it has been just a very busy time. I keep thinking, well, this week has been very busy, but then I think, well, yeah, but last week was very busy. It's just been a busy series of months, quite frankly, in my house. I feel like there have been a lot more appointments, a lot more play dates, a lot of work opportunities, some of which have been really fantastic. I had the honor to speak at a recent well-being conference, for example, and that was really wonderful. But when we are stacked up in activities, right, it creates busyness, which often leads to a lot of thoughts in my brain. I'm so stressed, I'm so tired, I've got too much to do. I know that I'm not alone here. And so part of the struggle with getting this particular episode recorded is that I've just been busy. But part of it too is that nagging voice that always comes up in my head. Who are you to talk about stress? And that was triggered by having had a pretty stressful week and knowing that I wasn't in the best place. I wasn't in the worst place either. I've been in that place before, but I was kind of thinking about a really simple sort of spectrum of stress for myself that made sense of like stress level 1 is kind of let me say this clearly, kind of the low level hum of the usual stress. And I would argue that if you are here and listening to my podcast, your low level hum of baseline stress is probably pretty high compared to many other humans, but we're just going to go with that. That's what's kind of normal. I think for the last couple of weeks, I've been operating at what I'll call stress level 2, which is that I notice sort of my traditional sort of signs that I'm not doing great in terms of managing my stress. Like I've got more things on my plate. I'm having more thoughts about how tired, how busy, I'm stressed, how stressed I am. I'm feeling the emotions that come from that. And it's harder for me to engage with the normal stuff that I do to take care of myself. It's not to say that those things aren't happening, but it's harder to do them, right? For example, it's harder to get up and go out for my walk, or it's harder to do some of the journaling that I typically do, right? That to me is signs that I'm in stress level 2. Sometimes there are physical signs as well. If you've heard me talk, I've been having a lot of trouble with my eyes, so that's not been amazing. I've also, I'm somebody who will get like eye twitches, which is a completely different eye problem than the one that I'm currently having. For some of you, it's migraines, muscle tension, neck aches, right? Difficulty with your sleep. Maybe you feel like your heart's racing, more often, or, there's some physical manifestation. Maybe your stomach doesn't feel as good. I haven't been feeling as hungry as usual, which of course doesn't mean that I don't have the thoughts about stress eating, because that's also something true about me. But I know that when I'm not feeling optimal, like I won't feel as hungry at times that I would normally feel hungry, and kind of affects kind of how my stomach area feels. And then stress level 3. And stress level 3 is the place that we really want to be in incredibly rarely only, right? Stress level 3 is you are just so depleted and run down, and maybe things are flat out unsafe or flat out shutting you down, right? The debilitating migraine that you can't work through, the kidney stones that send you to the hospital, the inability to really think and function and do your work. We tend to think frequently, I believe, that we need to get to some kind of witnessable, observable, severe state like that before we can get help. And painfully, we know that too many physicians get to that place and are not able to get sufficient help and end up losing their lives to it. So I don't joke here in saying that it's a common problem that we often leave it to that desperate level. My friends, we need to do better and not let ourselves get there. We need to really notice when we are in stress level 2. That's going to feel different for everyone. It's going to look different for everyone. We're going to talk more about kind of this general idea, but as I was experiencing, my stress level 2, I was having, the common sort of old phrases come up in my head about who are you to talk about stress? Because you still feel stressed, right? You still fall into these times when you feel pretty stressed and you're not doing an amazing job, right? Because you're not like meditating for an hour every day. We have a lot of thoughts that get in the way and can make it difficult for us to engage with and get the real help and work on ourselves in the way that would be helpful. And I'm just sharing this as an example because I think that having these kinds of thoughts, these kinds of self-doubts pop up is a part of what gets in the way. And it's a part of what makes it challenging for us to talk about. And I share it because me too, right? We do hard work. We often do it with less help than we deserve and don't get help sometimes at real dangerous times. In the middle of patient care, right? We may not have adequate resources and we may be in a really, really incredibly life-threatening, difficult spot with the care of our patients. We experience that. And that all challenges our ability to recognize that we as humans should and deserve help, right, at different stages. And it shouldn't have to be when our life and health is threatened or when the life and health of another human being that we're taking care of is threatened. It shouldn't have to be to that extreme. But unfortunately, with our broken healthcare system, that is a reality. And I just want you to see how that works on you and makes you believe that maybe you don't deserve help when you're, quote unquote, only in a stress level 2. It gets complicated really fast, doesn't it? But let's back up a little bit and talk more about some common things that I see physicians struggling with when it comes to thinking about ways to reduce their stress. So I'm going to take a quick poll, a quick silent poll that you do on your own, but I want you to raise your hand, metaphorically or actually physically, if any of these things have applied to you. So raise your hand if you have at least one, but probably more, meditation apps on your phone that you have downloaded, swearing up and down that fine, you're finally going to meditate, and probably most of the time that you don't. Raise your hand if you have, let's say, a yoga app or something similar, right? Where, again, there's more of that body component than a pure meditation app. Or you've signed up for a yoga class or some other kind of yoga stress relieving related thing. Raise your hand. Me too. Yeah. Raise your hand if you have bought a new planner, journal, organizing system of some kind with the belief that this will help to lower your stress, right? You just need a system. You just need to finally use this product, whether it's digital or physical, and then you'll feel so much less stress because you'll be magically organized. Raise your hand, me too. Raise your hand if you have devices around your home or your office or in your car that are stress relieving products of various kinds. So I have these like myofascial tension release balls, and I have a foam roller, and I have a meditation cushion, right? I have these physical objects in my home, and I bet you do too, are designed and marketed like this is going to be the thing that helps to relieve your stress, right? Me too. And I want to highlight here the first point that we're going to talk about, which is that when we are buying those products or, picking out those products, downloading those products, when we are having that, stress-related run to Target or whatever your equivalent is, because we just need to get our shelves organized, or we just need to get the right journal or planner, or we just need to, get ourselves together. I know I'm not alone. And I know all of you are going to be like, oh my God, she's in my head, because I literally hear this from people all the time. When we are engaging with and buying those things, we are under the belief and the fervent hope that buying something, downloading something, using some product is going to change the way that we feel, right? It's going to reduce our stress. But what we are not recognizing when we are doing this, and again, me too, is we are forgetting that the way that we feel is directly related to how we think. And I think when it comes to stress, we have to recognize that stress is an emotion, right? It's a feeling that we have, and it relies on our thoughts about the challenges and the responsibilities that are before us. I'm going to say that again, that stress is an emotion that relies on our thoughts about the challenges and responsibilities before us. How is this true? Right? Those of you who are ready to argue with me, and I love you, so don't worry about it. I'm not offended by, be like, wait a minute. We have jobs that most people would describe as stressful. We operate on bodies. We prescribe medications. We diagnose complicated conditions. We care for the health and well-being of people in front of us and treat diseases and identify threats to health. We do a lot of challenging work, and we're doing it not just in an animal body, we are doing it in a human body, right, that has complex emotions, that can't always articulate exactly what's going on. And yes, that's true of babies, but it's also true of grown humans, grown adults who, quote air quote again, should be able to communicate to us, and for whatever reason they don't, right? Not just, a verbal communication difficulty and an intellectual difficulty. I'm just talking about sometimes people are not able to articulate very well what it is they're feeling in a way that we can understand and interpret it in order to be able to help figure out what's going on. We all have had that experience. But the way that we think about the responsibilities in front of us and the challenges that are in front of us influences how we feel. Let me give you a very real example of that. You and your colleagues or other physicians that you know might look at the same exact roster of patients in the hospital or the same exact schedule of patients, and you may have very different thoughts and feelings about what is going on. If you are in primary care, I know that you know colleagues that you work beside who do not take the responsibility of being the primary care physician as, my judgy self wants to say as seriously, but really they take the responsibility differently than you do, right? When someone has to go to the urgent care, they may not feel guilty as the physician who couldn't work that patient in, or who missed something, or who wasn't available for all things all the time. You know people like that. You know other healthcare physicians and providers who don't have the same feelings and thoughts as you do. Now, again, we work in a broken healthcare system. There are very real challenges. There are very real limits on resources. There is very real understaffing and underperformance. There is very real abuse of physicians and nursing. There is real things going on. We're putting that aside, right? Because that is a different challenge to solve. I just want you to see that the way that you think about the work that you do is different than the other humans who sit next to you and do work differently. Now, many of them may be aligned with you. Many of us, as primary care physicians, I'm just going to come back to that example, feel very responsible for the health and well-being of our patients, right? And we feel very terrible, right? If we missed something, we weren't available when that person needed us, if that person, blames us for something happening, even though, maybe we told them 50 times to quit smoking, and then they still blame us for not telling them that they were going to get lung cancer or, emphysema. It's like, what did you think I was asking you to quit smoking for? I won't digress down there. If you are not a primary care physician, but you're some other specialty, right? People are having the same experience, right? We are having the same challenges where we have thoughts and feelings about the work that we do, what we owe other people, what our responsibilities are, heavily influenced by other people pushing their responsibilities and expectations onto us, 100%, right? But the way that we think about our responsibilities, perceived or real, and the challenges that we face influences how we feel. Again, the same person could have the same schedule as you and have different thoughts and feelings. This isn't about judging what's going on for you if you feel stressed. This is just recognizing that the way that we think matters. It creates how we feel, and that's why buying a planner or downloading a yoga app isn't going to change the way that you fundamentally feel about your work and your responsibilities. Now, I'm not saying that yoga isn't helpful. I'm not saying that journaling isn't helpful. I'm not saying that this beautiful planner that you bought isn't a good idea. What I'm saying is that that is not sufficient in order to change the emotion of stress, right? When you think right now about the complex constitution of, how the emotion of stress manifests in your body and in your mind, we will not make progress on relieving those things until we start to change the way that we think. And again, it's not about self-blame. There are very real reasons why you have landed in this place, right? With this set of thoughts and beliefs and with this set of emotions that follow it. But that's why, working on our internal landscape, whether that's through coaching or therapy or some other modality, it doesn't have to be with another human. But until we change the way that we think and challenge the automatic thoughts and beliefs that are in our heads, we're not going to feel better, no matter how many pretty planners you have. My friends, I have so many. It's not even, I'm not allowed. I'm on planner probation. I'm on journal probation. I'm not allowed to buy anymore. I know I'm not alone on that. All right. So if this is true, and I hope you see how it can be true, right? That our thoughts are creating the emotions that we have, with the acceptance that we work in a broken healthcare system. We're not leaving that part out. We're just not waiting on the healthcare system to fix itself before we feel better. I hope you can see that stress reduction, right? Stress relief, stress management, whatever we want to call it, is not passive. It's not passive. It involves changing the way that we think. And when we are having sort of the old thoughts pop up and the old beliefs pop up, which they will, they just will. That's how our brains work, right? Those are well-worn ruts in the road in front of you, right? When you have somebody show up late, you have conditioned thoughts based on all your experiences of what happened when humans showed up late before, right? This is just how our brains work. But we have to work on changing those thoughts, right? And challenging those old thoughts when they pop up in order to start thinking and believing new things. That's just the way it goes, and that's not passive. That's why going to yoga class or using your yoga app doesn't change how you feel if you're having thoughts of, God, I'm so busy. I'm so stressed. I should be doing something else. I can't believe I showed up late. What is everybody thinking about me, right? If you're having this list of stress thoughts go on, you're not going to feel very relaxed doing yoga because your brain is hijacked by that train of thought. It is not in the focus on being grounded and present in your body, right? That yoga brings as part of its therapeutic benefit. What would you need? You would need to show up to that yoga class very clear that you deserve that time and space to move and relax your body. And it's not to say that you won't have some of those thoughts pop up, right? But if the dominant narrative going on in your head is that you shouldn't be there, how selfish, you're taking time away from family, you've got 20 notes to finish, right? If that's the zone that you're in, we know that yoga's not going to do anything. Picking on yoga a lot, you understand what I'm saying. But let me give you another example to prove to you that stress relief is not passive. Let's say, and I've given this example before, but I think it's a really good one, that let's say that your work comes to you, right? Your boss sits you down and said, we notice how hard you've been working, and we're so grateful, for the care that you've been providing. So to say thanks for, toughing it out for these past however many years you've been working, we're going to give you a 2-week vacation. So we've taken all the patients off your schedule, and we'll probably assign somebody to your box, and we'd like you to go and have this restful vacation, and here's some money to go and take care of yourself. Okay, so you have been allowed to go and take time off without fighting for it. And you've been given a little money to go and, go to a spa, go to the vacation area of your choice, right? And you do that, and you decompress a little bit, and, that feels good, that feels better. But my friends, how do you feel in the days before you go back to work? That is the key right there, because all of a sudden, based on your past experiences and the current thoughts that you have about your work and what it takes, you are suddenly, after 2 weeks of no work, feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, hypervigilant, right? Because you got to go back to it. We so often believe that we just need a break like that in order to feel better. And I'm not knocking that taking time off isn't helpful. It absolutely is. And sometimes it's incredibly necessary, right? When you are in stress level 3, if you remember my earlier examples, you may need to take FMLA, right? You may need to take some real time off. Sometimes we need to quit a job and we need to not do work for a little bit. And I realize that that's not a luxury that every single human has, but there are times, right, where we need to do that. And the cost of not doing that is real injury to our health and well-being and sometimes death, right? Okay, that got a little bit morbid, but I hope you can see. So I'm not knocking time off, but what I am saying is that the passive experience of being plopped into vacation, right, and then needing to return and go right back to regular work, right, that doesn't fix your stress ultimately. It might diminish it for that time period, right? We might see, on the graph, right, that there's this, what do they call it? Like a tooth-shaped U-curve sort of thing, right, where your stress levels drop, but it's going to go right back up in the days before you return to work, because the way that you think about your responsibilities and challenges is unchanged. And if you've had the experience of returning to work and finding your inbox is crazy full of all kinds of stuff that doesn't need to be in there, then guess what? That is magnified, my friends, because now you're behind, right? And you're going to be dropped right back into it. And it doesn't matter if you went to, Hawaii for a week and sat on a beach, right? Suddenly you're back in stress mode. It is not a passive process to manage, reduce, relieve our stress, but you can see that it involves changing the way that we think about the responsibilities and challenges before us. The final big teaching point for today is that in order to do this, we need to really start to practice self-compassion and letting go of judgment and comparison. And these are really real problems for people, because what happens when I'm working with some of my coaching clients, mostly women physicians, is that they are observing their colleagues around them who don't seem to be distressed, who don't seem to be bothered, or at least not bothered as much by what they're experiencing. And they are interpreting that as, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, I'm not working hard enough, there's something weak in me that is making me feel this way, rather than seeing that they're not inside the brain of the person who is saying it's not that bad or seems to be experiencing that it's not that bad, right? Sometimes we'll have people in our lives who are like, yeah, no, I just, I'm a surgeon, but I come to work and I go home when it's time to go home. What's the big deal? There are some of those people, but they are thinking something different than you. And we also don't really know what they do and don't feel, right? Some of those folks probably have some real numbing and tuning out and lack of awareness of their emotions. And some of them are great at having thoughts about their responsibilities and challenges that allow them to be more calm and, to take everything with stride. They have different thoughts and feelings than you, but we don't know exactly what's going on, right? I mean, yes, you could talk to them and you could probably figure out, right? Are they really like numb and detached and out of tune with their bodies and their emotions and their thoughts? Or are they someone who has gotten really good, probably from experience, with being able to set boundaries? I don't want to say compartmentalize, like they're, what does that show? Like they're completely detached from their bodies, but they are able to see, like, okay, I'm not at work right now, and I've signed out, or, I've closed my inbox for the day. I am not on call all day, all the time for these work responsibilities, because they think of themselves as a full, complex human with other things in their lives, right? They think about their thoughts and responsibilities and challenges differently. You could probably figure out who's who, but we don't really even need to do that. What I'd much rather you spend your time doing is letting go of the judgment and comparison, recognizing that this has been bred into us throughout our training. It was hard to get into medical school, right? There was a lot of competition. It might not have been that hard for you, because maybe you were on kind of like the top of the pack, But it was challenging, right? Something like only 7% of those who apply to medical school get in. That tells us, right, that 93% don't. Don't fact check me on that. That comes from Dr. Una, who's my business mentor. Let's not dwell on that. But that has been true, and she has fact checked it before, so whether or not that's perfectly accurate right now is not really relevant. But you can see right there, I was worried about judgment from you challenging my numbers, right? Because it is so baked into us. We need to let go of that comparison and judgment. And that's going to come slowly over time. But we also need to be practicing self-compassion as we go, recognizing that many other humans, including many other humans who are listening to my words right now, struggle with these same issues. And we are not broken. We are not dumb, weak. We are not unworthy. But we have been conditioned to think that maybe we are. Maybe we are any of those things because of the culture of medicine that has thrived off being the toughest, being the most quote unquote resilient. I think we know what that has created, and I wouldn't say that that has created good things for us. Now, I consider myself to provide excellent care. I don't consider myself to be the smartest clinician. I don't consider myself to have the most knowledge compared to other people. But I think that I do excellent work. And I think that I hold high standards for myself and, the work that is produced, within my medical care bubble. But I've let go of so many thoughts about things needing to be perfect in order to be good or excellent. I've let go of feeling like I'm the only person as the primary care physician who, should be involved with all the things. There are primary care elements that I have let go of. There are other things that I have taken on, right, and become more expert in. That's okay, but it has taken an active letting go, and it has taken self-compassion when I've had the thoughts of like, oh, remember how you used to do X, Y, and Z thing? Remember how you used to, be checking this and that all of the time? Remember how you saw so-and-so and they would always blah, blah, blah. We tell ourselves so many stories. It is not helpful. But what is helpful is tuning in to recognizing that you are not alone, you are not broken, you are not weak, you are not inefficient, you are not ineffective. Of course, I will say that when you're in stress level 3, or even stress level 2, you are also not functioning optimally. But to function optimally, you will have to let go of comparison and judgment. You will have to actively start shedding some of that for yourself and for other humans. You will have to think differently about the responsibilities and challenges that you face, right? You will have to practice self-compassion and recognize that although you want everything to be wonderful for your patients, there are so many parts of the healthcare system and there are so many challenges in the socioeconomic status bubbles that we live in. There are so many things that influence a person's health that don't have anything to do with you and you don't have any control over, and you may want those things to be better, but you can't fix that all, right? So self-compassion for the parts of you that want to make up for the broken healthcare system and that want to rescue people. We do hard work. There is an emotional toll. And self-compassion, knowing that it's not because you aren't good enough. It's that these things are not fixable by other people in the singular way that we work, right? To fix socioeconomic disparities is not a one-person job. To fix the broken healthcare system is not a one-person job, right? To take care of the hundreds or thousands of patients that you take care of is not a one-person job. There are so many elements here. And if you have a lot of thoughts of, yeah, but, those are the thoughts I'm talking about. Those are the thoughts that are leading you to feel stressed. And turning down the volume on some of those thoughts, right? Thinking them less frequently, practicing thinking different thoughts, right? That give you a different emotional experience is the way to help manage your stress. Now, who's got an empty journal lying around, or like 50? I think I counted once, and I want to say my number was 17. I think it's 18 now. But I digress. I'm not going there. But just to say I've got the words too, right? Take one of your journals right now and sit and think about the experiences you've had in the last couple of days that are contributing to your stress. Just write down the sentences that pop up. When you feel the stress in your body, however you feel it, are you having thoughts about how much you have to do? Are you having thoughts about what should or shouldn't have been different for your patients? Are you having thoughts and worries about what's coming tomorrow? Just start to really see the flow and how many of those thoughts are going on. It starts with this awareness and coming to it with this self-compassion, being like, oh gosh, no wonder. Right? When Kristen Neff talks about self-compassion, she talks about shared humanity. Seeing, no wonder I have these thoughts. I feel this way, right? No wonder I feel this way, because anybody with this amount of these kinds of negative thoughts would be feeling the same kind of stress that I do. So what we've talked about today is recognizing that stress is an emotion that relies on our thoughts about the challenges and responsibilities before us. We've talked that stress relief, stress reduction, stress management is not a passive process. It is an active one, right? It involves understanding the ways that we've been thinking about things and the beliefs that we have about those responsibilities and challenges, and working to counteract them, not preventing them from coming up, because we can turn down the volume of them. But as your stress goes up, as things get, you will find that, they come floating back. And we will constantly be in this dance of turning the volume down and replacing them with more helpful thoughts. That's just part of how this works. And then finally, leaning into self-compassion and realizing that you're also going to have to turn the dial down on your judgment and your comparison, right? So that you can really lean in and do this work. I hope that this has been a powerful episode for you. I'm glad that I was trying to record an episode in my car yesterday while I was waiting to pick up one kid before blah, blah, blah. Like there was just all this stuff going on, and I just kept getting side railed and finally just gave it up, because I knew that this was a really important topic and I didn't want to botch it. And I do believe in good enough work, but I was like, this really needs to be better. And frankly, ultimately what I did was that I knew I was having a date night with my husband where we were going to have dinner with friends and go to a show, right? And then I was going to get a whole morning where the kids were at grandma's house and I could sleep in and I could go for a walk when it wasn't dark, right? Because I had slept in a little bit. Sleeping in is 7. Ugh. Remember when you used to sleep in till 9? I don't know, maybe some of you are still able to do that. I haven't been able to do that in years. But I was able to have a more relaxed morning, and leaning into that self-care has produced a better episode for you today. So I am actively practicing these things. I am recognizing that I'm in stress level 2 and that I need to put in some steps for myself in order to bring that back down, right? I need to work on the thoughts that I'm having, and I need to pay attention. I'm a little bit overscheduled right now. Okay? All right. I can fix that. I fixed that before. It's a constant reminder. You need to be aware of how many things you can cram in and when you need to put in some time. That's just true for me. I need more blank space. That's what I'm working on. All right, my friends. If this episode has been helpful, I would be so grateful if you would share it with friends, if you would leave a rating or a review for us, especially on iTunes or Spotify, because those really help the algorithm. But please don't keep this work to yourself. I always love to hear from you as well. Sometimes people will send me a message and let me know what it meant, and there's opportunities to do that within your podcast player. You can, I can't remember what it's called. It's called feedback or something. But you can also reach me at megan@healthierforgood.com, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, until next week, take care.